Hi guys. So this is a like fairly standard household object, I would have thought, right? Um, and I've never really thought about it before I went to uni, and I think it was in first year. I was talking to a couple of people that are from different parts of the country to me, and they those two were initially having a conversation, and I happened to join in the conversation or whatever. And so there's one of them's from Birmingham, and one of them's from Manchester. And I'm from the south, obviously. Manchester's in the north, Birmingham's in the Midlands, in case anyone doesn't know. And the person from Birmingham was making fun of the person from Manchester for what they call this. And so I was like, oh, okay, this is quite funny. And so the person from Birmingham was like, okay, this is clearly a clothes dryer or like an airing rack or any combination of those words as like just straight description of what this thing does. You fold it open, you lift things up, and you hang clothes on it to dry. It's a clothes rack or like a clothes airer or something like that, right? Makes perfect sense. And I don't call it that, but I can see that that is a perfectly normal name for this object because it does what it says. So the person from Birmingham turns to me and is like, I was a friend from Manchester. They call it a maiden, and I was like, okay, that's really weird, because obviously maiden like is a word that has like completely different meanings or whatever. But I'd never heard it called this before, and seemingly neither had many other people, especially not my friend from Birmingham, who was extremely confused by this whole thing and found it quite amusing that such a silly name would be given to this. And so we were sat there joking around, laughing about that or whatever. And then the person from Birmingham turns to me and says, well, what do you call it then? And in that moment, I had the weirdest like realization of like I might not be normal. Not that I hadn't had this before, obviously. It was only in that moment that I realized how weird the name that I use for this thing is. And I'm sure you could see it on my face as I sat there. You could see the cogs turning in my brain. It was like, wait, this is going to sound so weird. This is going to sound absolutely mental. As if I didn't come across as weird enough already. Because what I call this thing is a clothes horse. Now, this is the only name I've ever known this thing by, right? The clothes bit, obviously completely fine. That's what it's for, like I said. You stand it up and all of that jazz. Where does the horse bit come from? This is not a horse, quite clearly. I'm not sure why. Yeah, I mean, I guess it like very vaguely makes sense from the point of view of like a horse could be used for like carrying things, like like donkeys are, so like that kind of animal. You put a saddle on them, you like strap stuff over their back or something, again because they're stronger than humans or whatever. But this is not inherently for carrying stuff. It's for holding stuff on and letting it dry. And I've not done my research. I'm not like, this isn't my specialty in like the field of history and all of that. But I'm pretty sure horses have not ever been used for drying clothes on, in any major way in human history. So I'm not sure why it's called, or why I've ever known it as a clothes horse. And so, as I was saying this, I was realizing this is going to make me sound absolutely mental. And then both the two people I was talking to looked at each other and they looked at me as like, what the fuck? In the same reaction as someone calling it a maiden, which of course I'd never heard of. And so I it got me thinking: is that? And no, not to exaggerate this, right? But this has been on my mind ever since then, for the past 4 years, genuinely. But is it a regional thing? Is it a regional thing? Do people from different parts of the country call it a different thing? I don't know, because I've only ever heard it called a clothes horse. Not that I've talked to that many people about it, but within my immediate family, my parents, my nan, and all of that, we've only ever called it a clothes horse. So that's just what I knew it as. Obviously, a clothes rack or a drying rack or a clothes airer, anything like that, makes complete sense. And if someone said that, I would know what they were talking about. But I've never heard it called a maiden before, and so I don't know if that's just another case of that person from Manchester, their family or whatever, just having a different name for it than most other people, or whether it's a case of my family or whatever having a different name to most people. But I'm so confused. I can't work out. Is it like a regional thing? Does the South call it a clothes horse? Does the North call it a maiden? Do the Midlands call it a clothes rack or whatever it is? Like I'm so confused. I can't begin to imagine what it would be called like when you're not in the UK. Like do Americans or something have or Australians have some weird name for this thing that is going to make even less sense than what I call it? I have no idea. I think about it daily. It confuses the hell out of me. After that, like my whole worldview genuinely was changed. I have no idea what to think anymore. Yeah, that's about it. See you tomorrow.